Lenten season, I've asked people in our congregation to give testimony. The testimony that they are sharing with you is "This is me," and this morning we will hear from Beth Gambaccini, who is coming forward slowly from the back as we all admire her great beauty. Thank you.
Good morning. I'd like to read the meaning of the word resilient. It's an adjective, two parts. The first is of person, able to withstand or recover quickly from difficult conditions. And the second is of a substance or object, able to recoil or spring back into shape after bending, stretching, or being compressed. Robin asked me to give testimony today for all of you and talk about a time that I was brave. As many of you know, my mom, stepfather, grandfather, sister, nephews, and children all attend the First Church. I was raised in this church, and I married the father of my children in this church, and my children were baptized here. I was an angel every year in the Christmas pageant. And in the 8th grade, I finally got to be Mary. And Nathaniel Blake was the baby that year. I don't know if any of you guys remember that, but he screamed the entire time. And Elaine Blake rescued us and swapped out Nathaniel with a baby doll, and we were so relieved. I made amazing lifelong friends here, and they really felt as close as siblings. And we had the pleasure of being mentored by some of the most caring and patient adults as youth leaders. I was confirmed in this church, and both of my children, Matthew and Julie, were baptized here. And on the Sunday morning where Matt was baptized, Jonathan Wright Gray read aloud my confirmation statement in front of the church as kind of a full circle. So we didn't know that he was being baptized on Confirmation Sunday, nor did I realize that Jonathan just pulled out this random statement of confirmation that just happened to be mine. But little did I know that my life would change from that point in so many ways. When my son was born, I was working with early intervention, providing multi-systemic services to children between the ages of birth and 3. And because I was the mental health counselor with a speech background, most of the families I worked with had children with some sort of autism spectrum diagnosis. My colleagues would often ask me to do consultations if they had a child on their caseload that had, that look or a concern, some kind of developmental concern. And I would help them and the family navigate the next steps. Autism was kind of my thing. I graduated from Assumption College with a master's degree in counseling psychology, and I completed my thesis on the development of autism and hypotheses around when and how it manifests in children. When Matt and Julie were both babies, I used my knowledge of American Sign Language to teach them baby signs, to be proactive if they were slow to speak, and Matt's favorite sign was cheese. And Julie's favorite was all done, but she'd say, all dada. I remember being a mom not once but twice with so much joy. I also remember the sinking feeling I felt when Matthew was 10 months old, watching him fall to the floor screaming because he couldn't navigate his push toy around the kitchen table. The gut feeling I pushed way down inside when he was 12 months lining up his toys. The cognitive distortions I used to explain why my 18-month-old baby would rather sit in the sandbox sifting sand over and over than play with his peers during a playgroup. Watching him be meticulous about how he put his binky right under his nose and making sure it was always in the same place. Hearing him name the color yellow, yellow too, because he heard me say, and yellow too, so many times. Observing the horror on his face when he couldn't find his favorite Matchbox car to bring to bed at age 2 and subsequent tantrum that would follow. Those were very difficult days because I knew what was coming, and I didn't know how to face it. I didn't know if I could be the mother he would need me to be, and I was scared, and I thought, why would God do this to me? And wondered if there even was a God. I remembered being angry and allowing my anger to fill me for small moments because I knew it was not going to help me be the mother he needed me to be, and I had to be brave. I called early intervention, and a psychologist came out to assess my child, like I had done for so many children before. The psychologist and speech therapist took out their toys and watched how Matthew manipulated them. And during their assessment, I saw them give each other looks. And I knew what that was. And in my heightened emotional state, I yelled at them. They were lingering in my driveway, and I said, "Get out of here. I know what you're doing. I know you're talking about my kid having autism, so leave. Do something useful. Write up an assessment to get him some services. Just do what you need to do." So Matt got his diagnosis. I got divorced. I advocated for my son to have his services through the school. I parented my Julie and delighted in her huge blue eyes and her words, her bald head, and how much she loved her big brother. And I fought with the school to make sure they were giving my son the least restrictive, most appropriate education. And they hated me because I was that mom who wouldn't stop fighting and advocating for him. And life was hard then, and it's hard now. I'm thankful for the process and the pain because it made me a strong person, a better mom, a more resilient mother for all of my kids. It made me a patient auntie, a patient wife, a patient sister, and a more understanding therapist. I understand in hindsight that God gave me Matthew because he knew I was the mom that he needed. And I have learned through many of my struggles that what appears to be a disaster can really be a gift. What feels like the end of the world or unimaginable pain can end up leading to something so magnificent that it supersedes the fire you had to walk through to get it. And my journey with my sweet boy was the beginning of that lesson, but I don't think I fully bought into that idea that God puts us on a journey until more recently, and the journeys have strengthened my faith, and now I get it. Circle back to today. Matthew's now 15 years old, and he's thriving at Wachusett. His kind and loving sister, Julie, rides horses and wants to be a vet and own a bakery when she grows up. We're part of a loving, blended family now with all its joys and challenges. My stepson is sarcastic and funny and eats nothing but goldfish. And my husband is my rock. I would not be able to appreciate the love the way I do if I had not experienced the chaos, loss, confusion, anger, and bewilderment that has been my life. This church has always been a part of my life at every stage, and I feel like I have mentors and friends all over these pews. I feel like I have a place where I belong, where I can come and share my joys and lift up others through service and prayer. And I'm so thankful for this congregation. You can't be strong without having to go through the hot mess of life. You have to be brave. And I'll end with an African proverb that states that smooth seas do not make skillful sailors.